Tonight, we step into candlelit corridors where silence holds more weight than crowns. Behind carved marble and whispered prayers, an unseen hand guides the rhythm of power. Not in proclamations, but in pauses, lies the Vatican's deepest secret. Begin in the middle, a sealed room, a simple desk, a ledger no one sees. Not fiction, yet never fully proven. That is where this story lives, in the space between what is recorded and what is understood. People say Black Pope with a mix of fear and awe. The title isn't official. It is a nickname born from whispers for a leader who moves without spotlight, whose power is felt more than seen. It points to a structure older than most nations, held together by vows, discipline, and time. This is not a scandal tour. It is a sleepwalk through influence. We use soft light, not fire. We trace how decisions form in silence, how rituals shape belief, and how belief shapes the world. We follow the chain, private counsel to public decree, quiet letters to loud headlines, a raised eyebrow to a changed policy. We notice the tools, language, timing, patience. We watch how a hand that never signed still guides the pen. As you listen, let the world slow. Hear the tick of clocks in rooms you'll never enter. See the weight of rings that pass from older hands to newer ones. Feel the calm of people trained to keep secrets for life. We will not chase every rumor. We will listen for patterns. We will ask simple, steady questions. Who speaks before the speech? Who chooses what must not be said? Who guards the guard? If you came for names, you may be disappointed. If you came for understanding, you may sleep better, or perhaps not at all. Power loves the quiet. Tonight, so do we. Breathe in. Step softly. The guide is ready. The doors will open when you arrive. The door was plain. No carvings, no golden handle. Just wood, darkened by years of touch and silence. People passed it daily without noticing. Yet behind that door, decisions formed that would ripple across oceans. It had no plaque, no sign, no record in any guidebook. Still, it was known. Not in the way streets or landmarks are known, but in the way rivers know their source. Those who served in the building called it simply the door. They never explained further. They never needed to. Imagine yourself walking the corridor. Marble underfoot, paintings overhead, busts of saints and rulers gazing from alcoves. The air smells faintly of incense, though no mass is underway. Candles burn in corners that do not need light. A hush lies over everything, as if the stones themselves have sworn an oath. You pause at the door. At first, it seems unremarkable. A door among many. But when your hand hovers near the handle, you feel it the pull, subtle but real, like the gravity of a secret. Inside, the room is smaller than you expect. No towering ceilings, no ornate throne. Just a table worn smooth by years of paper sliding across it. On that table, letters with broken seals, ledgers filled in a careful hand, margins crowded with notes written so small they seem meant for eyes other than human. There is always a chair pulled slightly back, as if someone has just risen or is about to return. They say no official decree ever begins here. Nothing signed, nothing stamped. Yet if you trace any order, any decision that changes the course of nations, its faint outline leads back to this quiet space. The door has no name because names leave tracks, and tracks are meant to be followed. Silence leaves none. Here is where the Black Pope is said to pause before speaking. A nod, a whisper, a brief exchange that shifts the path of men who wear crowns and robes alike. The walls of the room absorb those words. They do not echo. They do not escape. They stay, as if the stones themselves understand the burden of carrying them. Power in this place does not roar. It hums. It vibrates faintly, like a string drawn tight but never plucked. To step into the room is to feel both smaller and larger than yourself. Smaller because you realize how vast the machine is. Larger because you are now part of it, even if only as a witness. The door is not locked, yet it cannot be entered by all. Those who push without invitation find themselves lost in endless corridors. Those who are expected find the knob warm to the touch, as though the wood itself welcomes them. No record of this exists. No photograph confirms it. Still, ask the guards who have stood watch nearby, and their eyes will shift, not meeting yours. They will not confirm, but neither will they deny. Each night, when the corridors fall empty, candles burn low, and footsteps fade, the door remains. It does not sleep. Behind it, decisions breathe in silence. The world outside never knows, but you know now. You have stood here. You have felt the pull. You have seen the door that has no name. And tomorrow, when a headline surprises you, or a law arrives as if from nowhere, remember, it may have started here. Behind wood and silence, where no plaque tells the story, the world believes it is ruled by those in the light. But shadows move first. Not all keys are made of metal. Some are phrases. Some are gestures. Some are years of loyalty condensed into trust. Still, the metal ones exist too. Old iron, heavy in the hand, worn smooth by centuries. A guard once said the keys sing when they touch each other in the ring, though he swore this only after wine and only once. In the Vatican's labyrinth, doors stretch endlessly. Archives stacked with leather tomes. Chambers where rituals echo softly. Cellars where artifacts rest in silence. Each door promises something: knowledge, power, access. Yet none compare to the doors whose locks open only to certain keys. These keys are not handed freely. They are not stored in drawers. They pass from palm to palm with ceremony, often in rooms lit only by candle flame. Picture it, a small circle of men. The walls lined with shelves of old books, the air thick with wax and incense. One man holds the ring. The keys clink, dull but steady. He calls a name. A hand extends. The key passes. No applause, no oath spoken aloud. Just a nod, an understanding. That single motion may decide what truths are guarded, what letters are hidden, what archives remain forever sealed. People outside imagine keys as simple tools. They forget that to hold one is to hold permission, and permission is power. A locked door is only a barrier until the right hand arrives. Then it is a bridge. That is how shadows move. Not with force, but with access. The Black Pope, as whispers call him, is said to know every key without needing to hold them. He knows which ring belongs to which hand, and which hand may falter under pressure. His power is not in the iron itself, but in the web of access, the unseen knowledge of who may enter, who must wait, and who will never cross. In the dark, keys glimmer faintly. Their sound is soft but sharp, like the memory of a bell. They remind you that not all doors should open. Some stay closed because the world is not ready. Some stay closed because the truth inside would unravel too much. And some stay closed simply because silence itself is the strongest defense. Think of the times you have wanted something but were told not yet. Think of the times you pressed your hand against a barrier and wondered what lay beyond. Now imagine that multiplied across centuries, across nations, secrets behind stone, decisions behind wood. To walk through the Vatican at night is to hear faint clinks echo in the halls, carried by those who guard more than rooms. They guard histories, futures, and the balance between both. The keys they carry shine not in daylight but in darkness. Only then do they reveal their true weight. And in that darkness, where corridors twist and candles tremble, you realize the truth. Keys do not just open doors. They choose the world that will be allowed to exist. You step inside and notice it first. No windows. The air is still, almost heavy, as though it has been waiting. The walls are thick, lined with shelves and paintings, but no glass cuts through them. Light comes only from lamps and candles, controlled and soft. Time feels different here. The outside world fades. There is only this. Rooms without windows are not accidents. They are intentions. Windows let in sound. Windows let in eyes. Windows let in escape. A windowless room holds its own climate, sealed from interruption. What enters stays. What is said lingers. These rooms are chosen for conversations that must not leak, for plans that must not scatter in the breeze. In such a room, power does not need volume. A whisper carries the same force as a shout. A glance can weigh more than a speech. Decisions form slowly, layered like stone. The absence of windows reminds you that here, there is no outside. There is only inside, only the circle of those present, only the words spoken that will shape what others may never know. The Black Pope is said to prefer such spaces, not out of paranoia, but precision. Every element matters. The placement of the chairs, the level of the flame, the silence between sentences. Without windows, no distraction. Without distraction, full attention. Without attention, no power. Imagine sitting in such a room. The air thickens. Someone speaks your name. You answer softly, aware that every syllable may shift history. Papers slide across the table. A candle flickers. No one writes notes. No one records. Yet everyone remembers. The walls themselves seem to remember. Outside, bells toll. People pass in streets. Tourists snap photos of grand facades. Inside, time bends. The room feels both eternal and fleeting, as if it exists outside the map of the city. You realize that windowless rooms are less about secrecy and more about shaping reality before it meets the world. They are wombs where decisions gestate, unseen, until they are ready to be born. Later, when the public hears of a choice, new policy, new alliance, sudden shift, it will seem sudden. But you will know better. It was born here, in a space sealed from air and light, nurtured by whispers, guided by silence. Rooms without windows do not invite you in. They keep you. Once you enter, you carry their weight forever. For you have breathed the still air, felt the hum of decisions forming, and known that power does not need daylight to grow. It thrives best in the dark. He never walks where light lingers too long. He prefers corners, alcoves, the quiet bend of a corridor where footsteps fade. To the outside world, his role may not even exist. His face appears rarely, his name even less. And yet, those who sit in gilded chairs and wear crowns of ceremony often find themselves glancing into the shadows, aware of his presence. The Black Pope, they whisper, though not always with the same tone. Some say it with reverence, some with unease. Few say it twice. His influence is not painted on walls or carved into marble. It leaves no signature, no statue, no crest. His authority flows from what cannot be traced. Silence, counsel, and the art of shaping men before they step into the world's gaze. If the Pope wears white, a figure to bless and console. The Black Pope wears none, a figure to guide unseen. One works in light, the other in shadow, and together they balance the weight of centuries. Legends describe him as a master of listening. He lets others speak until they reveal what they tried to hide. He lets the loudest voices burn themselves out, then places one sentence so precise it rearranges the room. He knows that power spoken aloud often weakens. Power carried silently gathers strength, pressing down with invisible weight until it cannot be ignored. Imagine being near him. You might not notice at first. A man in plain clothes, perhaps standing just behind the group, perhaps sitting off to the side of the table. He does not command attention, yet your eyes find him without reason. He leans slightly forward, says nothing, and you feel his presence as though he has already spoken. That is how influence works when cultivated over decades. It needs no announcement. It's simply island. The curtain is not cloth. It is perception. It separates what the public sees from what the system knows. The man behind it does not need to step forward. His hand moves from within, tugging at the fabric in ways so subtle most never notice. A pause before a decree, a letter delayed by a day, a suggestion whispered to the ear of a man who will later deliver a thunderous speech as though it were his own thought. These movements shape nations, yet they leave no footprint. He is called black, not for darkness of soul, but for the absence of spectacle. Black absorbs, black conceals. Black keeps light from scattering. In that silence, strategies bloom. The more the world guesses, the less it knows. The more it tries to name him, the more his role dissolves into rumor. And in rumor, power grows even larger. Because the undefined can stretch further than the known. Picture a grand hall filled with diplomats, politicians, priests. Their voices clash, their words rise and fall. Somewhere near the back, the man behind the curtain nods once. A guard moves. A document shifts. A conversation ends. No one mentions him. Yet later, As agreements are signed and outcomes accepted, his silence threads through every decision. That is how shadow power moves without applause, without ceremony, with only the certainty that those who matter already understand. If you were to strip away the layers of myth, perhaps you would find a man like any other, one who breathes, tires, prays. But that is not the point. The myth is the truth here. The legend of the Black Pope matters more than the man himself, for the world fears and respects what it cannot see. A figure defined by absence becomes larger than any visible throne, and so he remains behind the curtain. Not because he cannot step forward, but because stepping forward would end the spell. His strength lies in the half-light, in the uncertainty, in the whispered thought that perhaps, just perhaps, he is the one holding the strings. And when you lie awake at night, wondering who truly makes the decisions that shape your day, it is his shadow you imagine. That is enough. It begins with a whisper, but not to others. It is whispered inward, into the heart, sealed like wax on parchment. A vow. Once spoken, it cannot be unsaid. The words may be simple: to obey, to protect, to serve. Yet, behind them lies a binding older than law. These vows form the invisible walls that guard the Vatican's deepest rooms. They are stronger than locks, heavier than keys. The men who take them understand that silence is not absence. Silence is work. It holds the weight of secrets that could shatter if released too soon. In the quiet of their nights, they carry these vows like stones in their pockets. They do not speak of what they have seen. They do not share what they have heard. Their silence is not weakness, it is discipline. A discipline that makes them more powerful than any shouted command. Consider the corridors again. Tourists wander them by day, snapping photographs of marble and murals. But beneath, beyond, above, there are corridors unseen. In those spaces, silence reigns. Guards stand still for hours. Assistants carry letters without asking questions. Scribes record only what is permitted, leaving blank the spaces where the true decisions breathe. And through it all, silence binds them together, tighter than any chain. The Black Pope thrives within this culture of vows. His influence does not rest on the power to speak, but on the power to withhold. He knows the value of a sentence lies not in its length but in its timing. He knows that silence itself can be the loudest answer. When others rush to fill the air with words, he remains quiet, forcing them to listen to what is not being said. There is an art to silence. It is not simply the absence of speech. It is the presence of control. It is the refusal to give away what should remain hidden. It is the discipline of waiting until the world leans closer, hungry for a word, and then offering only what you choose. This art has been refined for centuries within the Vatican, where secrets are currency and vows are vaults. Imagine swearing such an oath. You stand in a chamber lit by flickering candles. Shadows stretch long across stone walls. A senior figure places a hand on your shoulder. You repeat the words, your voice steady. You feel their weight settle into you. From that moment, you are changed. Your silence becomes part of something larger, something older. It is no longer only your own. It belongs to the order, to the church, to the unseen force that guides from within. Many struggle with silence in the modern world, where everything clamors to be spoken, shared, broadcast. But here, silence is not a gap to be filled. It is a fortress. And those who live by these vows know that to betray them is not simply to break a promise, it is to unravel a world carefully stitched together by trust. The Black Pope understands that silence is the true foundation of influence. Without it, secrets spill. Without it, strategies crumble. Without it, even power loses shape. But with silence, everything holds. With silence, decisions bloom in darkness until they are ready to be seen. With silence, the myth of the shadow ruler survives. And so, vows are taken, silence is kept, centuries pass, faces change, but the discipline remains. And when you walk past the high walls at night and wonder what lies within, remember this: it is not the bricks that hold the secrets. It is the silence. It starts small. A lean toward another. A phrase barely above breath. A hand shielding lips from curious eyes. One whisper, then another, then another. A chain forms, invisible but unbreakable, linking people across rooms, across countries, across time. This is how decisions move when they cannot be written. This is how power travels without leaving footprints. In the Vatican's hidden corridors, whispers are the veins of influence. They carry instructions, warnings, encouragements. They move faster than letters, safer than documents, subtler than decrees. One whisper can travel from a candlelit chamber to a palace abroad in less than a day, passed from mouth to ear with precision. It does not matter that the words are soft. They are carried by trust, and trust amplifies them louder than shouts. Picture a gathering of leaders, the room filled with discussion, voices clashing, decisions pressing. Then, in the pause between arguments, a whisper slides into the ear of one who commands respect. He straightens, he clears his throat, he speaks, repeating the whispered thought as though it were his own. The room listens. The direction shifts. No one remembers the whisper. They remember only the words spoken aloud. That is the power of the chain. The Black Pope rarely needs to shout. His influence spreads through the chain of whispers, each link stronger than the last. Those who repeat his words do not always realize whose thought they carry. They believe it was born within them, a sudden clarity, a flash of insight. They do not see the invisible hand that placed it there, guiding them gently toward the path already chosen. Whispers are effective because they are deniable. They leave no ink, no evidence. A whisper can be dismissed as rumor, misheard, misquoted. And yet, by the time anyone tries to trace it, the decision has already taken root. The chain has already done its work. There are stories of whispers changing history. A word in the right ear before a treaty. A soft suggestion in the pause before war. A phrase dropped into the silence of confession, echoing far beyond the booth. None of these are recorded in books, but their fingerprints can be seen in outcomes that seem too sudden, too precise, too orchestrated to be coincidence. To live in this world is to listen constantly, not for what is shouted, but for what is murmured. Not for what is announced, but for what is hinted. The chain does not break because those who carry it understand its weight. They know that to lose a whisper is to lose a thread of destiny. They protect it with their silence, passing it forward carefully, as one might carry a candle through the wind. And so, the whispers continue. They move through halls, through gardens, through carriages and planes. They move unseen but not unfelt. And when the world changes suddenly, when headlines shift direction overnight, remember this. It may have started with nothing more than a breath, a murmur, a single whisper. The chain endures because people believe it fragile. In truth, it is stronger than iron. Iron can be broken, but a whisper, once planted, can never be unheard. The table is simple wood, smooth from use, edges rounded by time. Papers rest upon it, stacked neatly, their corners aligned as if the precision itself carries meaning. A pen lies nearby, heavy, its nib waiting. But those who expect to see words written here will leave disappointed. For this is a room where thoughts move, where decisions take shape, but where ink rarely remains. Not every choice can live on parchment. Ink leaves trails, trails lead to questions, and questions unravel control. The true art of influence is to guide without evidence, to make a path so natural others believe it was their own idea. The Black Pope is said to master this art. He knows the weight of words, but also the burden they carry once captured. So he uses them carefully, speaking just enough, writing almost nothing, ensuring his presence lives in silence rather than in archives. Imagine a man entering the room. He expects to leave with instructions, a plan written clearly. Instead, he leaves with something subtler, a phrase that lingers, a thought planted, a direction that feels like his own discovery. He does not realize he has been guided until days later, when his decision unfolds exactly as intended. He may even believe he chose freely. That is the power of ink that leaves no trace. It writes directly on the mind. At times, drafts exist. A letter penned in secret, a note marked with careful words. But even these seldom survive. They are burned once delivered, their ashes scattered, their contents carried only in memory. The paper is gone, but the influence remains. This vanishing act is not destruction. It is protection. It ensures the path stays clear of fingerprints while the outcome grows undeniable. Consider the archives. They hold centuries of letters, decrees, confessions. Yet for every page stored, countless others vanished. The gaps are as telling as the words preserved. Empty spaces whisper more loudly than the filled ones. Historians search, but the silence speaks louder. Here lies something once known, now forgotten by design. That absence is no accident. It is a choice. The Black Pope does not need his name in ink to shape history. He prefers absence to presence. He prefers the trace that dissolves, the command that becomes suggestion, the suggestion that becomes thought, the thought that becomes action. To him, influence is not about visibility, it is about inevitability. Think of your own life. How often have you believed an idea was yours, only to realize later it had been planted by another's words, a passing phrase, a suggestion so soft you barely noticed? That is the same mechanism at work here, refined to perfection. The ink may never touch paper, but it stains the mind more deeply than any pen could. In this world, absence is power. The fewer the records, the stronger the influence. The less written, the less contested. And so, ink is spared, paper is left blank. Yet decisions bloom, laws are signed, alliances shift. History moves forward, guided by marks that never existed, by ink that leaves no trace. In the courtyard, stone arches rise in symmetry. Each curve mirrors another, each column supporting weight beyond its own. To the casual eye, it is beautiful, perhaps even sacred. But to those within, it is more than design. It is instruction. Ritual, like architecture, shapes behavior, guiding not only movement but thought itself. Every morning, bells toll at the same hour. Every prayer follows the same rhythm. Every procession takes the same path across marble floors worn by centuries of feet. Ritual does not ask. It directs. It creates a pattern so familiar that deviation feels impossible. Through repetition, ritual builds walls, invisible yet solid, containing those within as surely as any fortress. The Black Pope knows the strength of such patterns. He does not need to command each action. He lets ritual do the work, carrying obedience through habit, loyalty through repetition. A man who prays the same words daily begins to think within their boundaries. A group that gathers each week under the same arches begins to act as one body, not as individuals. Ritual becomes architecture, shaping minds long before choices are made. Consider the small gestures, the bow before an altar, the kiss of a ring, the pause before speaking in a chamber. Each seems simple, even ceremonial, but each is a door. To bow is to acknowledge hierarchy. To kiss is to accept authority. To pause is to surrender timing. These acts, repeated endlessly, form pillars of obedience stronger than laws. Imagine entering such a space for the first time. At first, you hesitate. You do not know the steps, but soon, you follow. Others bow, so you bow. Others cross themselves, so you do. Soon, the rhythm carries you, and the choice is gone. The ritual has written itself into your body, guiding you without your consent. That is its genius. Architecture is not only stone and mortar. It is also invisible frameworks built through repetition. Ritual provides those frameworks, shaping not only where people walk, but how they think, what they accept, what they expect. The Black Pope understands this better than anyone. He knows that once ritual becomes second nature, it becomes stronger than command. A command can be resisted. A ritual is lived without thought. Look around your own life. Patterns shape you too. The morning routine, the commute, the small gestures you repeat without question. These are rituals, and they shape who you are as much as any belief. Now imagine those rituals refined for centuries, aligned with power, reinforced by architecture that surrounds you. That is the world of the Vatican. That is the stage on which shadow influence thrives. The power of ritual lies not in spectacle, but in its quiet insistence. Day after day, act after act, it builds a structure within the mind that is harder to break than stone. Walls may crumble, but a ritual once ingrained remains, carried forward even when the reason for it is forgotten. That is why ritual is architecture. It endures. It commands without speaking. It shapes without forcing. It builds power invisible, but unshakable. A hand extends, pale against candlelight. On its finger glimmers a ring, heavy, ornate, glistening with the quiet authority of centuries. Another hand bends toward it, lips brushing the metal. The gesture is small, almost silent. Yet in that moment, power passes invisibly, as heavy as iron, as binding as law. Rings are symbols, but not merely decoration. They carry weight, not in gold or gem, but in what they represent. A ring worn by a man of influence speaks louder than his words. It tells of vows taken, authority granted, silence demanded. To kiss it is not only respect, it is submission. It is agreement to a hierarchy that needs no explanation. The Black Pope, though seldom seen, is said to understand this weight. He does not raise his voice often, nor does he need to. The ring speaks for him. It shines as reminder of who holds power, of who must follow. Even in silence, its presence demands recognition. Imagine a chamber filled with men debating fiercely. Voices rise, arguments clash. Then, a hand rests upon the table, the ring catching the light. Instantly, silence spreads. No command is given, yet order returns. The weight of the ring carries more than words. It carries centuries of expectation, of obedience passed down through generations. Rings bind their wearers as much as those who bow to them. To wear one is to carry responsibility, to be marked by the weight of an institution larger than any individual. It is not a jewel, it is a burden, polished until it gleams. The Black Pope's strength lies not in displaying it, but in letting others feel its gravity without words. Think of objects in your own life that carry weight beyond their material. A key that opens more than a door. A letter that means more than its paper. These are symbols. And symbols bind us more deeply than logic. Rings serve the same purpose, condensed into a circle of metal, endless, eternal. They remind both giver and receiver of bonds that cannot be broken. The ceremony of kissing the ring may seem old, even quaint. Yet within it lies profound truth. Respect made visible, hierarchy confirmed, obedience sealed. For a moment, the lips meet metal, and both parties know their place in the great order. The one who bows acknowledges authority. The one who extends acknowledges the burden. Neither needs to speak. The weight of rings cannot be measured by scale. It lies in the silence they command, the obedience they inspire, the centuries they represent. To wear one is to join a chain that stretches back into history and forward into the unknown. To kiss one is to submit to that chain. The Black Pope thrives in such symbols. He understands that visible power fades, but symbols endure. A speech may be forgotten, a decree overturned, but the memory of bowing, of pressing lips to metal, of feeling the chill weight of authority that lingers forever. That is the true weight of rings, not their shine, but their permanence, etched into the memory of those who kneel, shaping their obedience long after the moment has passed. On the desk lies a single sheet, blank at first glance, but already heavy with the weight of what it might carry. The parchment is thick, its surface ready to absorb ink that could ripple across borders. A pen rests nearby. Beside it, a stick of wax, red as blood, softened by flame. And next to the wax, a seal iron, engraved, waiting to press its mark. 3 objects, ordinary on their own, but together they form the most delicate machine of power: paper, seal, and delivery. Not every order is spoken. Some require the touch of permanence, but permanence that can still be hidden, destroyed, denied. Here is where the dance begins. The Black Pope knows when silence is enough, when whispers suffice. But he also knows the value of paper, the weight of words that cannot be dismissed. A letter written in his shadow may travel farther than a speech from the brightest balcony. Imagine a message crafted in careful hand, the words chosen not for flourish but for precision. Each line carries more than meaning. It carries intent, shaped to fit the mind of the one who will receive it. These letters are not long. They do not need to be. The fewer the words, the sharper their edge. Proceed. Delay. Confirm. Such brevity is its own command. Once the ink dries, the wax is heated. The seal presses down, leaving its imprint. That impression is more than decoration. It is authority made visible, the weight of centuries pressed into a circle of red. To break such a seal is to enter into covenant, to become part of the chain that links the unseen room with the visible world. The one who receives it knows they hold more than paper. They hold permission. They hold command. Then comes the delivery. A rider at night, a courier whose face blends into the crowd, a servant slipping into a palace with a folded sheet beneath his robe. The path is as vital as the words themselves. A message delayed can lose all power. A message intercepted can destroy the work of months. So delivery is its own art, a ritual refined by centuries of secrecy. At times, the parchment never leaves the building. At times, it crosses seas, carried through storms, surviving borders by the loyalty of those who guard it. The Black Pope does not need to send armies. He does not need to stand at podiums. He sends paper, sealed, delivered. A single sheet can turn the course of nations. A letter can command loyalty more deeply than a flag. For those who receive it know, the paper is not suggestion. It is direction. To ignore it is to step outside the chain, and to step outside the chain is to vanish. Consider how, in your own life, one document can change everything. A contract signed, a letter delivered, a message accepted. These papers become thresholds. You step through them, and the world is never the same. Now imagine that multiplied, scaled to the level of kingdoms, guided by hands that never appear in the open. That is the role of paper, seal, delivery in the machinery of shadow power. And when history turns suddenly, when alliances shift overnight, when leaders act with uncanny timing, it is tempting to believe they simply chose. But more often, somewhere behind the scene, parchment waited, wax cooled, and a seal pressed its weight into silence before the courier vanished into the dark. The corridors of stone are quiet, but behind closed doors, training begins. Not with weapons, not with drills, but with silence. The art of shadow power cannot be taught in books. It must be shaped in people, layer by layer, until obedience and discretion become instinct. The Black Pope does not stand alone. His strength rests on those formed by centuries of discipline, men who learn to disappear even as they stand before you. Training for shadow starts with listening. A novice sits in a room while two voices argue. He is asked later not what was said, but what was meant. He learns to hear the gaps, the pauses, the words unsaid. He learns that silence often screams louder than speech. To notice this is the first step toward carrying influence without speaking. Next comes memory. Novices are handed a page, dense with numbers, names, places. They are given only minutes to study it before it is burned. Days later, they must recall every line. In time, their minds become living archives, storing what must never be written, carrying truth safer than any locked vault. Some forget how to forget. Others learn to carry silence like a second skin. Then comes loyalty. Loyalty not to man, not to crown, but to the chain itself. They are tested. Secrets whispered into their ears are bait. They are watched to see if they speak. Some falter. Some cannot bear the weight. Those who remain become keepers of whispers, carriers of commands. Shadows within shadows. Training is not only about skill but about patience. A man may be asked to wait in silence for hours, in a room with no window, no sound, no purpose, but to wait. If he cannot bear it, he leaves. If he stays, he learns the strength of stillness. In stillness, influence grows. In stillness, decisions take shape. Stillness becomes his weapon. The Black Pope selects carefully from those who survive this process. He knows not everyone can live in silence. Not everyone can bear the absence of recognition. Some crave applause, others seek glory. They do not last. Only those who can remain unseen, whose satisfaction lies not in credit but in completion, become part of the true network. Imagine such a life. You move through the world unnoticed, carrying words not your own, guiding actions without leaving a trace. You sit at a table but never speak your full mind. You listen more than you act. You obey without hesitation, not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to surrender to something larger. This is the shape of training for shadow. It may seem harsh, even impossible. Yet, this discipline is what sustains the invisible machine. Without it, secrecy would collapse, Whispers would scatter. Paper would fall into wrong hands. With it, the system endures, year after year, generation after generation, as strong as stone, though no stone records its presence. And when you hear of decisions made quietly, without fanfare, without trace, remember, someone was trained for this. Someone sat in silence. Someone carried the weight, unseen. The Black Pope may guide, but his reach extends only because others have been shaped to carry his silence forward. They are not marked on maps. They have no labels on doors. Yet they exist rooms designed not to speak, but to hear. Some are padded, absorbing sound so nothing escapes. Some are built with curves and arches that carry whispers across the space, letting one voice reach many ears without strain. Some are hidden high in towers, where echoes bounce softly off stone. Together they are called listening rooms, spaces where silence and sound meet, where power leans forward and learns. The Black Pope is said to know them well. He understands that influence is not about speaking more, but about hearing better. To hear what others miss, to capture the tremor in a voice, the hesitation before a word, the sigh at the end of a phrase. These details reveal more than declarations ever do. In listening rooms, decisions are not made. Picture yourself inside one. The light is dim, the air still. You sit at a table, not to speak, but to observe. Across from you, a man explains, confident in his words, but you notice his fingers tapping, his voice tightening when a certain name arises, his pause just a beat too long. The words say one thing, the silence says another. In that moment, you know the truth behind the speech. That is the work of the listening room. Not all listening is direct. Some rooms are placed so sound from another chamber drifts in. The voices of leaders, unaware they are overheard, spill into the ears of men trained to capture meaning. No records are taken. No devices are needed. Memory serves as recorder. Silence as vault. The information gathered becomes fuel for decisions later made. Listening is an art as much as speaking. Anyone can talk. Few can truly hear. To listen is to surrender ego, to let the other fill the space while you collect the fragments. The Black Pope does not need to dominate with words. He listens. He gathers. He waits until the right moment to let one precise phrase reshape everything. Listening rooms are also tests. Those invited inside are often unaware. They think they speak in private. They think their words vanish into the air. But their hesitations, their slips, their contradictions, all are noted, silently, carefully. Later, when choices are weighed, these fragments are placed into the scale. A man may believe his argument carried weight. In truth, it was the tremor in his voice that decided his fate. Think of your own life. How often have you spoken, unaware that someone nearby listened more carefully than you imagined? How often have you revealed more in a pause than in a speech? That is the essence of listening rooms, magnified to the scale of nations. The smallest sound can carry the largest consequence. The Black Pope thrives in such silence. He knows that to listen is to see without eyes, to feel without touch. The world shouts, but truth hides in whispers, in breaths, in sighs. And in the quiet chambers where sound is trapped and memory sharp, the future is shaped not by what is said, but by what is heard. Spread out before you lies a table, wide enough to carry the weight of nations. Upon it, not maps of rivers and borders, but maps of people, names, circles, lines connecting one to another. They are not drawn in ink for all to see, but in memory, in whispers, in quiet recognition of who knows whom, who owes whom, and who can be moved with the smallest push. These are the maps of influence, and they are the true geography of power. The world looks at countries, flags, armies, but the Black Pope looks at connections. He knows a treaty is not signed by two nations, but by two men who met once in a corridor, exchanged words that seemed meaningless at the time, and remembered each other's tone. He knows policy does not grow from law, but from persuasion, from the careful weaving of trust and obligation. His maps are not of soil, they are of souls. Influence flows like rivers. Some are strong currents, obvious and loud, rushing through public channels. Others are hidden streams underground, moving silently, nourishing roots unseen. To the untrained eye, they do not exist. Yet those who understand can follow them, finding where they emerge, predicting where they will lead. The Black Pope is said to master this, to see connections invisible to others, to sense how one whisper in a quiet room in Rome might ripple into a speech delivered in Paris, a vote cast in Madrid, a law shaped in Washington. Imagine such a map. One circle for a leader, another for his advisor, another for the advisor's confidant, another for the confidant's brother. The lines extend outward like veins, linking across continents. Each connection is a potential doorway, each relationship a channel of persuasion. Influence moves not by force, but by following the path of least resistance. A suggestion travels through trust. A command moves through loyalty. A whisper slides along the lines until it reaches the place where it must bloom. The strength of these maps lies not in numbers, but in precision. To know who is not enough, one must know how. One man may be moved by fear, another by flattery, another by duty. One woman may be swayed by the promise of legacy, another by the call of faith, another by the pull of affection. The map does not only connect people, it reveals what draws them, what binds them, what opens them to guidance. The Black Pope does not carry these maps on parchment. They live within him, built over years of listening, watching, remembering. A single glance at a gathering tells him more than any dossier. He sees how one man leans slightly toward another, how another avoids a gaze, how another waits before speaking. These are not accidents. They are connections revealed in posture, tone, silence. They tell him who carries weight and who is carried, who leads quietly and who believes they lead while following another. Power is rarely where it appears. A president may sit in a palace, but his decisions may rest upon the whispers of a single counselor, whose convictions were shaped by a letter written long ago by a teacher, whose beliefs were influenced by a sermon given decades before. The map stretches backward and forward, linking the living with the dead, the present with the past. To trace it is to trace the unseen architecture of choice. You too live on such a map, though you may not see it. Your decisions ripple outward, shaping others. The people you trust shape you. You are connected to thousands you will never meet, through lines invisible but real. The Black Pope simply works at a scale where each connection is weighted, measured, and used with precision. When the world changes suddenly, when alliances shift, or wars end without clear reason, it is tempting to look at speeches, laws, events. But beneath them lies the true cause. Maps of influence, carefully read, patiently followed. In the quiet of his chambers, the Black Pope sees them clearly. He does not need to move mountains. He only needs to move the right man at the right time. The rest follows. Words are light, soft, fragile. Yet in the right hands, they weigh more than armies. The Black Pope understands this truth better than anyone. He does not need to raise a sword or command legions. He shapes outcomes through language words chosen so carefully they cannot be resisted. Words so subtle they enter the mind like breath, unnoticed until they change everything. Language has always been a tool of power. Empires rise on the rhythm of speeches, religions spread through the cadence of prayers, laws bind through the structure of sentences. But here, within the shadowed halls, language becomes more than communication. It becomes leverage. One word placed at the right moment tips the balance of decisions, turning doubt into certainty, hesitation into obedience. Consider the difference between must and should. One binds, the other suggests. Or between delay and wait. One implies weakness, the other patience. To the untrained, these are small matters. To the Black Pope, they are the levers of history. He knows that one phrase placed carefully in a conversation may echo through policy, law, even generations. He also knows the power of silence within language. A pause, an unfinished thought, a word withheld can be more persuasive than a long speech. The listener fills the gap themselves, and what they place there becomes their own conviction. Language is strongest when it feels personal. It works best when the other believes they arrived at the thought themselves. Imagine a gathering where leaders argue fiercely, their voices clashing like steel. In the middle of the noise, the Black Pope speaks only once. A phrase, quiet but firm. The room shifts. The arguments soften. No one notices at first, but later, when consensus forms, they repeat his words as though they were their own. That is the art of leverage. Not to overwhelm, but to pivot, to redirect, to tilt the scale with the smallest weight. This art extends beyond words spoken aloud. It lives also in letters, in sermons, in documents that appear ordinary but carry sentences so sharp they pierce through doubt. A single phrase in a decree can shift how an entire people understand themselves. A sentence in a letter can ignite or extinguish a movement. Those who craft such words wield more power than those who sign their names beneath them. The Black Pope studies language as one studies maps or weapons. He knows which phrases resonate in which ears, which metaphors stir which hearts. He does not use language broadly. He uses it precisely. To one man he speaks of duty, to another, of legacy, to another, of faith. Each word chosen to fit, each phrase shaped to open a specific door. Think of your own life. Words have shaped you more than you may admit. A compliment remembered for years, a criticism that still stings, a phrase that turned hesitation into action. Language does not pass. It stays, etched into memory, echoing long after it was spoken. This is why it is leverage. Once placed, it cannot easily be undone. History remembers speeches, but rarely the quieter sentences that preceded them, the whispered phrases that made the speech possible. Yet it is those whispers, those subtle words, that turn possibility into action. The Black Pope knows this. He does not need volume. He needs precision. And with that, language becomes the lever by which he shifts the world. The clock ticks. The pendulum swings. Time passes. Most see it as enemy, as weight pressing them forward, demanding action. But the Black Pope knows better. He knows patience is the strongest ally, and the clock is not foe but friend. Where others rush, he waits. Where others panic, he pauses. He understands that silence, stretched across time, can achieve more than force pressed in a moment. Patience is not inaction. It is preparation. It is knowing when the world is not yet ready, when a seed planted too soon will wither, when a move made too early will fail. The Black Pope does not chase outcomes. He aligns with time. He lets decisions ripen, lets opposition tire, lets inevitability build until resistance collapses on its own. Imagine a storm gathering. Others rush to prepare, to fortify, to fight against it. The Black Pope waits. He knows storms pass. He knows when the skies clear, the ground will be softer, easier to shape. He does not waste energy resisting what cannot be stopped. He conserves it, saving strength for the moment when one small action can reshape everything. This patience unnerves those around him. They expect urgency, orders, speed. Instead, he offers calm, quiet, silence. They mistake it for hesitation, but later they understand. His stillness was not weakness. It was strategy. By waiting, he let others reveal themselves. By waiting, he let events align without force. By waiting, he placed himself at the precise moment when influence could flow effortlessly. The clock does not frighten him. It is his ally. Each tick reminds him that nothing remains fixed. Power shifts. Circumstances evolve. What is impossible today may be inevitable tomorrow. Those who rush exhaust themselves. Those who wait find the world delivered into their hands. Consider how patience shapes your own life. A word held back until the right moment. A decision delayed until clarity emerges. These choices often succeed more than those made in haste. Now imagine that principle applied to nations, to centuries. That is the scale at which the Black Pope works. He is said to sit in silence while others argue, watching the clock, knowing their urgency will undo them. He lets them exhaust themselves, then speaks when all ears are ready. His words fall like a pebble into still water, rippling outward, carrying weight because they were spoken at the perfect moment. Patience is the hidden force behind every sudden change. What seems abrupt is often the result of years of waiting, of watching, of holding steady until the moment is right. The Black Pope lives by this truth. He does not fight time. He becomes part of it. And in doing so, he lets the clock itself serve his purpose. When you hear of decisions that seem sudden, when power shifts overnight, remember, the change was not instant. It was prepared in silence, carried in patience, guided by someone who understood the clock. For in the end, power does not belong to the loudest voice or the fastest hand. It belongs to the one who knows how to wait. The hall is quiet, though the air hums with something more alive than silence. A decision has been made, though no one will ever say who made it. There will be no proclamation, no signature, no visible stamp of authority. And yet, by morning, events will have shifted, power will have bent, and the course of nations will move as though pushed by unseen hands. This is fire without smoke, the art of shaping reality without leaving evidence of the flame. To the ordinary eye, power reveals itself in spectacle. Armies march, bells toll, leaders stand at podiums to thunder applause. But the Black Pope knows that true influence rarely requires such display. A whisper at the right moment can topple more surely than a cannon. A glance, exchanged quietly across a table, may redirect the fate of thousands. Where others burn with bright heat, drawing attention, he burns clean, leaving no ash, no trail, no scent of smoke to follow. Imagine a conflict rising between two rulers. Both speak publicly with certainty, both threaten loudly, both prepare to act. Yet overnight, the storm dissolves. They step back. They claim wisdom prevailed, or patience, or providence. What no one sees is the invisible hand that nudged one, then the other, guiding their steps away from collision. No emissary was recorded, no letter archived, yet the outcome speaks. A fire burned, fierce and precise, but it left no smoke. This method is not magic. It is mastery. It relies on knowing where to place pressure so small it is never felt, yet strong enough to shift the balance. It is persuasion whispered through loyal channels, influence carried by those who do not even know what they carry. It is strategy that flows like water, invisible, unstoppable. The Black Pope thrives here. He knows that power flaunted attracts enemies. Power revealed invites resistance, but power hidden, power that moves quietly through unseen networks, power that leaves no trail. That power is eternal. It cannot be attacked because it cannot be named. It cannot be resisted because it cannot be proven. Think of your own life. How many times have you felt guided by unseen forces, a path opening without explanation, a problem dissolving without cause? Fire burned, but you never saw the smoke. Influence leaves its mark, not in spectacle, but in the silence after, when everything is different and no one can explain why. This is the essence of shadow governance. Not spectacle, not thunder, not smoke. Only fire, silent, contained, leaving the world changed without leaving a trace of its heat. The Black Pope understands. And while others look for smoke to follow, he builds fires that consume without revealing flame. The night is heavy, the city outside hushed. Within the walls, a lamp still glows. The room is simple, its air thick with wax and ink, the smell of paper mingling with incense left from the evening's prayers. It is not yet morning, the bells have not rung, but already the work has begun. This is the council before dawn, the moment when decisions are born in the quiet hours, unseen by the waking world. At this time, words carry greater weight. Fatigue softens defenses. Shadows stretch long across the table. Those gathered speak softer, their minds unguarded, their tones less formal. The Black Pope prefers these hours. He knows that daylight brings noise, pride, performance. But in the last hours of night, people are honest. They speak without masks. They reveal what they truly fear, what they secretly desire, what they cannot admit when the sun is up. In these moments, the council forms. Not official meetings, not recorded sessions. Only a handful of men and women gathered, some seated, some pacing, some silent. They share fragments, not declarations. The Black Pope listens. He hears hesitation, the break in a voice, the silence between sentences. He takes note, not on paper, but in memory. Then, when all have spoken, he offers little. Sometimes just one sentence, sometimes only a question. And yet, those few words shape the path more surely than all the speeches that follow in daylight. Imagine being present. You sit at the edge of the table, tired but alert, aware that every sound may tip the balance. The man beside you leans forward, his voice low, revealing fear he would never confess at noon. Another admits doubt. A third grows bold, thinking the hour grants him courage. And then, across the table, the Black Pope shifts. He speaks softly, the kind of tone that does not press but persuades. His words fall like drops into still water. And slowly, the ripples spread. By dawn, the council disperses. Each person leaves, carrying conviction. They believe their own. They think they reached clarity alone, in silence, in reflection. They do not realize it was shaped by the one who said least, by the one who guided them not through orders but through subtle framing. By the time the bells toll, the decisions are already made. The rest of the day only delivers them. This pattern repeats across centuries. History records the public meetings, the documents signed, the speeches given. It does not record the council before dawn. Yet this is where the true currents form, where choices are made in silence, guided by the Black Pope's steady hand. Think of your own nights. Have you ever felt clarity arrive just before sleep, or just before waking, when your defenses are low and your mind unguarded? That is the same principle magnified, used at the scale of nations. The quietest hours hold the greatest power, because in them the truth is closest to the surface. The Black Pope knows this, and so he waits, lamp lit, patient, knowing that in the council before dawn, the world takes shape long before the day begins. Power often appears in motion, armies advancing, leaders speaking, decisions announced. But true mastery lies not in constant movement, but in knowing when to stop. The pivot and the pause. Two gestures that seem small, yet they hold the strength to redirect entire histories. The Black Pope practices them with precision. The pivot is the art of turning without breaking. A direction seems certain. A path appears set. Everyone believes events will unfold in one way. Then, suddenly, subtly, the course shifts. Not reversed, not shattered, simply redirected. Like a river bending around stone, the flow continues but toward a new horizon. The pivot requires no force. It requires timing. It is the ability to recognize when momentum can be redirected with the smallest gesture. The pause is its twin. While others rush forward, eager to act, the pause creates space. It holds stillness in the midst of urgency. It forces others to reveal themselves, to grow uneasy, to fill the silence with words that betray them. The pause can disarm an opponent more effectively than any argument. It can allow storms to pass, tempers to cool, and opportunities to ripen. Where others see delay as weakness, the Black Pope uses it as strength. Imagine a heated council. Voices clash, tempers rise, the decision feels imminent. Then, in the height of tension, the Black Pope raises his hand not to speak, but to stop. Silence falls. The room shifts. In that pause, the urgency dissolves. People reconsider. Doubt enters. And when he finally speaks, his words carry more weight than all that came before, because the pause prepared the ground. Now imagine a negotiation that seems destined for failure. One side entrenched, the other equally stubborn. The Black Pope listens, then pivots. He introduces a thought so small, so harmless, that no one resists. But that thought bends the course, gently, invisibly, until what seemed impossible becomes inevitable. No one notices the exact moment of change. They only see the outcome. That is the power of the pivot. These two skills, pivot and pause, are the heartbeat of shadow power. They require restraint, patience, timing. They require faith that the smallest movement at the right moment can achieve more than endless action. They require trust in silence and in subtlety. Think of your own life. How often have you rushed, only to regret? How often have you paused, only to find the solution revealed itself? How often have you turned slightly, avoiding disaster without even knowing it? These are pivots and pauses, played out at the human scale. The Black Pope plays them at the scale of nations, of centuries. The world sees decisions as sudden, shifts as dramatic. But those who know understand. Nothing is sudden. Nothing is abrupt. Everything is shaped by pivots, invisible, pauses, unnoticed. The Black Pope does not shout. He does not force. He waits. He shifts. He pauses. He pivots. And through those small, quiet acts, he guides the weight of empires. Beneath marble floors and polished corridors, beyond the painted ceilings admired by pilgrims and tourists alike, there lies another Vatican. Few speak of it. Fewer still enter. It is not the public archive, with its guarded doors and cataloged shelves, but the shadow archive, a place where words never meant for sunlight remain sealed. Here, the air is heavier. Candles flicker against walls that have never seen daylight. Shelves rise higher than the eye can follow, their contents locked in boxes of iron and wood. No labels reveal their purpose. The system here is not for scholars. It is for guardians, men who carry knowledge in memory rather than in ink. What rests inside? Letters from kings who swore loyalty in private but betrayal in public. Confessions of rulers whose sins never reached the pulpit. Treaties drafted but never signed. Plans prepared but abandoned. Every failure, every secret, every whisper, too dangerous for record above lives on below, preserved not to be read but to be remembered. The Black Pope is said to know these archives as one knows the back of his own hand. He does not need to walk the rows. He carries their contents in silence, recalling at will which letter, which parchment, which file could surface at the right moment to tilt a balance. He does not hoard secrets for curiosity. He guards them as tools, each one a piece of leverage waiting for its season. Imagine the power of such a collection. To know the private guilt of a leader who stands proudly in public, to hold the abandoned plans of a nation now pretending to walk a different path, to recall words spoken in fear, long forgotten by the speaker. The archive does not judge. It waits. It stores every vulnerability, every hidden truth, until the moment comes when silence breaks. But not all is written. Much of the shadow archive lives in memory, passed orally from one generation to the next. A small circle of men, trained to recall names, dates, moments. Their task is not to act but to preserve, to hold in stillness what must never reach the light, yet must never be lost. These living archives walk among corridors unnoticed, but within them lies the weight of centuries. The existence of such a place changes how you see history. When events shift suddenly, when leaders falter inexplicably, it may not be random. It may be the release of one carefully guarded piece from the shadow archive. A single truth revealed, timed with precision, can change everything. Think of your own secrets, the things you hope never surface. Now magnify them across centuries, across empires. The archive does not forget. It does not forgive. It holds, waits, remembers. And in the silence of its chambers, the Black Pope listens to the whispers of history itself, choosing carefully when to open a box, when to recall a line, when to let a truth long buried rise again to the surface. The shadow archive is not history, it is potential. Potential waiting, coiled in silence, ready to shape the future at a single command. The hall is grand, lined with pillars and marble floors polished so brightly that torches shimmer twice, once on the flame, once on the stone. A gathering is underway. Cardinals in crimson, officials in black, guards at attention. Eyes turned toward the man who speaks, his voice carrying conviction, his gestures broad and confident. To all who watch, he is the one in command. Yet those who know understand. The mask of authority does not always reveal the face behind it. Masks have always guided human power. Crowns, robes, uniforms, all are masks. They do not change the man within, but they change how the world responds. The Black Pope understands this deeply. He knows that to wear a mask is not deception, but necessity. Authority must appear solid, even if fragile. Confidence must appear unshakable, even if doubt lingers. The mask holds power together when truth might undo it. But masks are not only worn in public, they are worn in private councils, in whispered conversations. A man may speak with humility, but behind his humility lies ambition. Another may act decisive, but behind his decisiveness lies fear. These two are masks, crafted not of cloth or crown, but of behavior. The Black Pope reads them all. He sees past the surface, noting the cracks, the tremors, the slippages that reveal what lies beneath. And yet, he wears masks himself. Sometimes silence, sometimes authority, sometimes deference. He does not cling to one. He shifts them as needed, always aware that what people see shapes what they obey. To appear weak when strength is dangerous, to appear strong when others falter, to appear absent when presence would reveal too much. These masks allow him to move unseen while still guiding the stage. Imagine standing before such a figure. You may believe you know him. His words seem plain, his gestures ordinary. But later you realize what he said meant more than you thought. What he did suggested more than you noticed. You realize the mask he showed you was not his face at all, but a reflection designed for you, specific to your need, your fear, your loyalty. This is the genius of the mask. It allows one man to be many, one figure to carry the weight of different roles without breaking. It shields his intent, while projecting what others must believe. And in this shield, in this constant shifting of masks, the Black Pope thrives. He does not need to be seen for who he island. He only needs to be seen for who others expect him to be. Think of your own life. How often do you wear masks? At work, at home, with strangers, with loved ones? Each time you shape yourself to fit the role required. It is not falsehood, it is survival. Now imagine that principle raised to the level of empires, perfected over centuries. That is how power persists. Not through faces, but through masks. The world believes it is led by those in plain sight. But behind them stand figures who shift masks with ease, hiding true faces in layers of perception. The Black Pope is one of them, perhaps the greatest of them. He wears masks so well that even those closest to him may never know where one ends and another begins. Two men meet in a corridor. Their eyes meet briefly. One nods. The other returns the gesture. No words are spoken, no documents exchanged. Yet in that moment, an agreement forms, stronger than any written contract. This is the silent handshake, the oldest, simplest, most untraceable act of loyalty. In the Vatican, where whispers carry weight and silence guards secrets, such gestures are everything. Not all agreements need parchment. Some are carried in the brief press of palms, the glance of understanding, the shared silence that confirms intent. The Black Pope thrives on these moments. He knows that trust is not built in speeches but in silence, sealed by gestures no outsider will ever see. The silent handshake carries more than words. It carries history. I remember what you did for me. I honor what you owe. I protect what we share. It binds men not with law but with loyalty, unspoken and undeniable. To break it is not only betrayal, it is exile. For those who live in the shadows, reputation is currency. A broken handshake means ruin. Imagine standing in a hallway, watching two figures pass. You see nothing unusual. Perhaps a nod, a brief pause, a touch of hands. Yet within that moment, decisions have been made, futures sealed, directions set. No record will exist, no historian will find evidence, but the outcome will ripple outward, shaping policies, alliances, even wars. This is why the silent handshake is feared. It cannot be traced, cannot be intercepted. A letter can be stolen, a conversation overheard, but a gesture shared between two men, brief as breath, lives only in their memory. And memory, unlike ink, leaves no evidence for enemies to find. The Black Pope relies on such gestures. He does not need signatures. He does not need contracts. He needs only silence, trust, the weight of understanding shared between those who know. In these moments, the machinery of shadow power turns. Agreements form, unseen but unbreakable. Think of your own life. You too have made silent handshakes. These are small echoes of the same principle, the same truth. That trust does not always need to be spoken. It only needs to be understood. In the highest levels of power, the silent handshake is the strongest bond of all. For while words can be denied and documents destroyed, the memory of a gesture lives on, guiding loyalty long after the moment has passed. And so, in the quiet corridors, in the shadowed rooms, hands meet briefly, silently. No one sees, no one knows. Yet history bends. The silent handshake has spoken, and its weight will carry through the years to come. In a room without windows, chairs form a circle. No seat stands taller than another, no place marked as the head. To the unknowing eye, it looks like equality, men gathered as peers, decisions made by many. But those who sit within understand differently. A circle without a center is not leaderless. Its center is everywhere and nowhere. It is invisible, carried by the one who speaks least yet weighs most. The Black Pope is said to move in such circles. He does not dominate the room. He does not raise his voice. Instead, he lets others fill the air with their words, their claims, their fears. The more they speak, the more they reveal. The more they reveal, the more he learns. And when silence grows, when the weight of uncertainty presses, he leans forward. One question, one phrase, one direction offered with such simplicity that all arguments fall away. In these circles, the illusion of equality is preserved. Each man believes his voice matters. Each believes he has shaped the decision. But when they leave, when the outcome is clear, it is not their words that carried weight. It is the silence of the one who guided them all without ever standing at the center. Imagine sitting there. The air thick with incense. The sound of breathing loud in the stillness. You speak, unsure whether your words hold weight. Another argues. Another interrupts. The discussion moves in loops, chasing its own tail. Then, in the pause, a soft voice breaks through. What is the cost if we wait? A simple question. Yet suddenly, the entire circle shifts. The debate reshapes itself. Choices narrow. Paths align. The decision emerges, not from the noise but from the silence. This is how the circle works. It hides the hand that guides, cloaking control and equality. No one leaves feeling commanded. They leave believing they chose freely. Yet the invisible center has shaped them all, bending their will without breaking it. The Black Pope needs no throne, no title, no crown. The circle itself becomes his throne, his silence the crown no one sees. And when history recalls the decision, it will name committees, councils, assemblies. It will never name the silence at the center of the circle. Yet it was that silence which held the true weight. A crest carved into stone. A chalice placed carefully upon an altar. A ring kissed, a robe worn, a candle lit at a certain hour. To outsiders, these may appear as ritual, tradition, even superstition. But those within know differently. Symbols are language, and language is power. The Black Pope does not rely only on words. He speaks through symbols, each one older than memory, each carrying meaning beyond explanation. A raised hand may silence a room faster than a speech. A certain color worn at the right moment can signal unity or defiance. The placement of objects in a chamber can decide the mood before a single voice is heard. Symbols work because they bypass reason. They speak directly to the subconscious. They stir memory, emotion, loyalty, fear. A man may argue against words, but he cannot argue against what he feels when faced with a symbol that speaks to him. He bows without knowing why. He obeys without question. He carries the weight of centuries in a gesture he does not even understand. Imagine a gathering where tension runs high. Voices rise, tempers flare. Then, quietly, a chalice is placed at the center of the table. No explanation, no speech. The room shifts. Those present remember what the chalice means. Sacrifice, unity, obedience. Arguments soften. Heads bow slightly. The decision, once impossible, becomes inevitable. Not because of reason, but because of a symbol. The Black Pope knows the language of these gestures. He arranges them as carefully as words in a letter. He knows which symbols inspire courage, which bind obedience, which silence rebellion. He does not need to explain them. He only needs to place them where eyes can see. The rest unfolds on its own. You too know the power of symbols. A wedding ring on a finger, a flag raised above a crowd, a cross hung around a neck. These objects do not command logically, yet they carry weight heavier than law. They tell stories older than speech. They stir something in you that words alone cannot. Now imagine those symbols perfected, refined, used with precision by someone who understands their deepest force. That is the world within the Vatican's hidden corridors. It is not argument that binds men there. It is the language of symbols, carried silently across centuries, spoken without sound, heard without words. The Black Pope is fluent in this language. He writes with objects, speaks with gestures, persuades with silence. And in this language, no translation is needed. The message is clear, undeniable, and eternal. The greatest power is not only to act unseen, but to act in such a way that even when the world suspects, it cannot prove. This is the veil of denial, a cloak woven from silence, distraction, and misdirection. It is the art of moving freely while leaving no trace strong enough to bind. The Black Pope wears this veil like armor. In the corridors of power, suspicion is constant. Eyes watch, ears listen, rumors spread. But suspicion is not the same as certainty. Men may whisper, "He was behind it." They may believe they know. But without proof, their words dissolve. And so the Black Pope moves, shaping events openly invisible. His presence always felt but never confirmed. Denial is more than refusal. It is structure. Meetings held without records. Conversations spoken in corridors, never in chambers. Messages delivered by memory, never by paper. Each choice builds the veil, each silence adding a layer, until even the most direct accusation collapses for lack of evidence. Imagine a crisis unfolding, a sudden resignation, a shift in policy. Fingers point toward shadow influence. Some claim to know, some insist, but when asked for proof, none emerges. No letter, no signature, no witness, only suspicion, only whispers. And suspicion alone is never enough. The veil holds. This veil is not defensive only. It is active. It creates doubt even where truth exists. A rumor is released here, a distraction planted there. By the time eyes turn to the right corridor, it is empty. By the time suspicion sharpens, the trail has grown cold. The world chases shadows, but shadows are all they find. The Black Pope thrives behind this veil. He understands that denial is stronger than affirmation. To affirm invites challenge, to deny invites doubt, and doubt corrodes certainty faster than argument ever could. By the time an enemy tries to strike, they no longer know where the target lies. Think of your own life. How often have you suspected, but could not prove? How often have you felt truth, just beyond reach, but without evidence, could say nothing? That frustration is the essence of the veil. It leaves you certain and uncertain at once, convinced, yet powerless. The Black Pope builds this feeling into the very structure of his world. He ensures that what is known cannot be proven, and what is proven cannot be tied to him. This is why his shadow persists, generation after generation. You cannot strike what you cannot hold. You cannot accuse what you cannot prove. And so the veil endures. Events unfold. History bends. Whispers spread. But when the question rises, who truly moved this? The answer vanishes into silence. The world suspects. The world denies. The veil holds. And the shadow rules still. The walls of the Vatican have ears, though none are visible. Sound lingers here longer than in ordinary places. Words spoken in haste drift into silence but never vanish entirely. They echo sometimes in corridors, sometimes in memory, sometimes in the careful retelling of those trained to capture what others forget. The echo of secrets is not just a metaphor. It is the hidden pulse of power, the reason silence holds such weight in these stone halls. Imagine a chamber sealed by wood older than your grandparents. Inside, two men speak, believing they are alone. They keep their voices low, their sentences short, yet the echo carries beyond their intent. A guard hears. A scribe notices. A servant, passing silently, catches a fragment. None of them repeat it aloud, but all of them remember. That memory joins others, piecing together a story larger than any one conversation. The echo has done its work. The Black Pope relies on these echoes. He does not always need to be present. He does not always need to listen directly. Information travels in ripples. carried by memory, by whispers, by the unavoidable persistence of sound. Even silence carries an echo, the silence of a man who avoids a question, the silence of a meeting that ends too soon. To those trained to listen, silence itself becomes sound. Over time, these fragments accumulate. No single echo tells the full story. But together, they form a map of intentions, fears, loyalties. One fragment here. Delay the letter. Another there. He cannot be trusted. At first, they seem unrelated. But in the hands of one who waits patiently, they align, fitting together like stones in a mosaic until the picture is unmistakable. Think of your own life. How many times have you overheard something not meant for you? A sentence caught, a name mentioned, a sigh that revealed more than words. These fragments linger, and when combined with others, they tell a truth no one intended. That is the echo of secrets, magnified to the level of nations. The shadow ruler thrives in this. He does not shout, does not demand confession. He listens to the walls, to the pauses, to the fragments others dismiss. He collects echoes, weaving them into strategies sharper than any weapon. And when the time comes, he acts not on rumor but on the accumulated weight of whispers repeated too many times to be coincidence. History remembers the speeches, the decrees, the grand events. But it is the echoes, the small, fragile remnants of secrets that often determine the course. For secrets never vanish. They reverberate. They wait. And in the silence of the Vatican's deepest halls, the Black Pope listens to what the world forgets. Deep within the fortress of stone, there is a room known by many names but remembered by few. Some call it the Chamber of Shadows. Others call it nothing at all, refusing to speak of it even when asked. It is not marked on maps. It is not shown to visitors. Yet those who have entered say it changes a man forever. The chamber itself is not elaborate. Its walls are plain, its light dim. There are no decorations, no symbols, no thrones. Only a table of dark wood, polished smooth by centuries of hands resting upon it. The power of the chamber lies not in what is seen, but in what is unseen. Here, decisions are made that will never appear in archives. Here, conversations shape the course of nations but leave no trace behind. What happens inside? Some say the chamber is used for initiation, where vows of silence are spoken, binding men to the order of shadow. Others say it is where the most delicate negotiations unfold, those too dangerous for paper, too fragile for public halls. A ruler may sit here, stripped of his entourage, forced to face truth without ornament. A priest may confess not to God, but to the one who listens in silence, guiding him through choice disguised as absolution. The Black Pope's presence here is both real and mythic. Some swear he never attends directly, that only his emissaries sit at the table. Others insist they have seen him, his silhouette just beyond the candlelight, listening without expression, shaping outcomes without speech. Whether he is there or not does not matter. His shadow island, that shadow alone is enough to weigh upon every word spoken, every breath drawn. Imagine being summoned. You walk through corridors narrower than you expect, past doors locked with iron. At last, you step into the chamber. The air is thick, though not stale. It carries the weight of centuries, of secrets too heavy to escape. You sit, you wait. The silence stretches. And in that silence, you realize the truth. The room itself is watching. It demands honesty, not because honesty is required, but because the silence will crush you if you attempt deceit. This is the power of the chamber. It does not force, it draws. Men reveal what they swore to hide. They admit what they planned to deny. They agree to what they once resisted. And when they leave, they do not speak of it again, not because they fear punishment, but because the experience itself defies words. The Chamber of Shadows does not need records, it needs only memory. Those who leave carry its silence within them forever. They know they have stepped into a place where the ordinary rules of the world do not apply. They know they have touched the true machinery of power, where decisions are forged not in public but in darkness. And somewhere in that darkness, the Black Pope waits not as a man, but as presence itself. Not all who guard the Vatican's secrets wear uniforms. Not all stand at doors with halberds or patrol corridors with stern faces. Many wear no mark at all. They blend among priests, among scribes, among servants carrying trays of bread and water. They are the watchers in plain sight, invisible, because they are ordinary. These watchers do not need weapons. Their weapon is observation. They notice who lingers too long in a corridor, who hesitates before answering, who avoids certain eyes. They record nothing, yet remember everything. A misplaced glance, a nervous twitch, a slip of the tongue. These details may seem trivial, but to those trained to notice, they are signals, flashes of truth in the theater of deception. The Black Pope relies on them. He cannot be everywhere, but his eyes can. The watchers are not spies in the common sense. They do not infiltrate with disguise or cloak. They are simply present, always where they need to be, invisible in plain sight. A servant pouring wine hears as much as any diplomat. A scribe copying a letter notices the hesitation of the man dictating. A young priest carrying candles into a meeting remembers who sat where, who whispered what. None of this is written. All of it returns, quietly, to the one who knows how to use it. Imagine walking through the halls, believing yourself alone. A janitor sweeps in silence. A clerk scribbles notes. A boy lights candles at the altar. You think nothing of them. You speak freely. Yet later, your words appear in places you never expected. Your actions accounted for, though no guard was present. You wonder how. The answer is simple. The watchers saw. They always see. These watchers are not chosen for brilliance or rank. They are chosen for their invisibility. They draw no attention, ask no questions, inspire no suspicion. They are trained to notice without being noticed, to remember without reacting. Their silence is their strength, their ordinariness, their camouflage. And so the Black Pope's network extends without force, without threat. It extends through every ordinary space, through every unnoticed figure who sees without seeming to see. This is why his reach is so complete. It does not rely on grand gestures, but on countless small observations gathered over time. Think of your own life. You too are watched, though not always by those you expect. A cashier remembers your face. A stranger notices your hesitation. A neighbor sees your light burning late at night. Each fragment is nothing, but together they form a pattern. This is how the watchers work, weaving patterns from details too small for others to notice. The watchers do not speak of their role. They need no orders. Their presence alone ensures that silence holds, that secrets remain guarded, that influence flows smoothly. And when they vanish back into ordinariness, no one suspects. The Black Pope thrives because of them. His power is not built on spectacle, but on observation, on the truth that nothing escapes, eyes trained to see, even when those eyes seem ordinary. In the Vatican's shadow, nothing is ever truly hidden, for the watchers are always there, in plain sight. It begins without fanfare. A man departs, not dismissed, not disgraced, but gently shifted from one post to another. Another resigns quietly, citing health, though he walked in perfect health the day before. A third simply vanishes from the corridors, his name whispered less each week until it fades altogether. This is the quiet exodus, the art of removing without resistance, of clearing paths without stirring suspicion. The Black Pope knows the danger of spectacle. To expel a man publicly creates martyrs. To accuse openly sparks defense. But to remove in silence is to erase without struggle. It is to let absence speak for itself, to allow the world to adjust gradually, to forget naturally. When the exodus is managed properly, no one demands explanation. They nod, they accept, they move on. The man is gone, but the institution remains untouched. Imagine being the one removed. You receive no accusation, no trial, no condemnation. You are thanked for your service. You are given new duties far from the circle that matters. Perhaps a post abroad. Perhaps a library to oversee. Perhaps a retirement dressed in honor. You leave with dignity intact, though you know the truth you were moved, not for failure, but for being in the way. The genius of the quiet exodus is that it feels voluntary. The man convinces himself he chose to go. His peers convince themselves he left for good reason, and by the time doubt arises, his absence has already been normalized. The system closes around the gap. Seamless. Unbroken. This method is not new. Empires have always known it is safer to exile than to execute, safer to dismiss than to destroy. But within the Vatican's shadow, it becomes art. The Black Pope perfects it. He removes without removal, silences without force, erases without stain. And so the corridors remain calm, free of scandal, even as figures vanish one by one. Think of your own life. Have you not seen it? A colleague who slowly disappears from meetings, a neighbor who moves away without explanation, a name once common now rarely spoken. We accept absence more easily than confrontation. The world forgets quickly when no noise is made. The quiet exodus protects the institution. It ensures continuity without rupture. And for the Black Pope, it ensures power remains untouched, preserved by silence, strengthened by the disappearance of those who stood in its way. There is silence, and then there is silence beneath silence. The first is absence of sound, the pause between words, the stillness in a room. The second is deeper. It is the unspoken agreement not to speak, the quiet pact that binds men together in secrecy. This is the double silence, more powerful than any oath, stronger than any written contract. In the Vatican's hidden world, words are dangerous. To speak openly is to create risk. To write is to create evidence. But double silence requires neither. It thrives in looks, in gestures, in the mutual knowledge that some truths must never be voiced. The Black Pope cultivates this silence carefully, weaving it through his network until it becomes second nature. Imagine two men meeting in a cloister at dusk. They speak of ordinary matters, weather, health, scripture. Yet both know the real subject lingers unspoken. They never name it, never even hint directly. And yet, they leave with understanding clear as daylight. Their silence has said more than words ever could. Double silence protects because it denies. If asked, each can truthfully say, "I said nothing." No transcript exists, no record remains. The truth rests in what was not said, in the space between sentences. Those outside cannot pierce it, because there is nothing to grasp, only absence, only silence layered upon silence. The Black Pope thrives in this space. He does not demand confessions. He does not demand declarations. He shapes situations where silence itself conveys meaning. His network functions like music written not in notes but in rests, where absence carries the melody, where pauses hold the true rhythm. This kind of silence requires discipline. Most people cannot bear it. They rush to fill gaps, to explain, to clarify. But those trained in double silence know the strength of withholding. They know that to say less is to reveal more, to pause is to control, to leave space is to dictate its filling. Think of your own life. Have you ever sat in silence with someone, knowing what they meant without words? That is double silence, small and human. Now stretch it across councils, across generations, across empires. Imagine decisions made without being spoken, alliances forged without being declared. That is the machinery of shadow governance. The world often believes it can uncover truth by listening harder, by searching for hidden words. But here, the truth lies in the absence. The Black Pope ensures that absence endures. Double silence guards his power, a veil woven not of lies but of what was never said. Crowns are made of gold, encrusted with jewels, placed upon heads in front of crowds. They shine. They weigh heavy. They symbolize authority given by ritual. But not all crowns are visible. Some exist only in perception, carried not on the head but in the mind of those who obey. The Black Pope wears such a crown, the invisible crown, unseen yet undeniable. This crown cannot be taken. It cannot be stolen or toppled. For it is not an object. It is recognition, respect, fear, loyalty. It is the weight of centuries, of tradition, of whispers that say, "Here lies true authority." Those who kneel before it do so without seeing it. They bow not to metal or stone but to presence itself. The invisible crown is more powerful than any jewel. A visible crown draws envy, sparks rebellion. An invisible one cannot be attacked because it cannot be pointed to. It exists everywhere and nowhere, shaping obedience without proof. Those who follow do not even know why. They simply feel the weight, the inevitability of authority. Imagine standing in a room where no titles are spoken, no robes worn, no thrones displayed. Yet one man's presence bends the room around him. People defer, pause before answering, soften their tones. No order was given, no crown displayed. And yet, authority radiates. That is the invisible crown at work. The Black Pope does not need coronations. He does not need ceremonies. His power flows from recognition carried in silence, reinforced by tradition, preserved by ritual. The world may look elsewhere for crowns on kings, on emperors, on popes robed in white, but in the shadow, the true crown rests unseen, its weight carried by one who does not need the world to see it, to know it exists. This crown is eternal because it cannot be destroyed. Even if men deny it, even if they resist, its presence lingers. It is the authority that lives not in objects but in minds, and as long as minds bow, the invisible crown shines brighter than gold. Think of your own life. Have you not felt the weight of unseen authority? A teacher who commanded respect without shouting, a parent whose glance silenced a room, a leader who needed no title for others to follow. These are glimpses of the same principle. The crown is invisible, yet undeniable. The Black Pope wears it without ever lifting it. He does not show it because he does not need to. Those who move in his shadow feel it. They obey not because they are ordered, but because the invisible crown bends them, silently, inevitably. And so power endures, not through jewels or gold, not through spectacle, but through presence. A crown unseen, yet heavier than any other, resting not on the head of one man but on the silence of centuries. The corridor stretches longer than it seems. Stone arches rise above, candles flicker in iron brackets, and along both walls stand mirrors tall, narrow, gilded in fading gold. At first, you believe they are only decoration, relics of another age, but the longer you walk, the less certain you become. Each reflection shifts subtly, showing not only your body but your hesitation, your unease, your doubt. This is the corridor of mirrors, less a place of stone than of perception, where those who pass are forced to see more than themselves. It is said the Black Pope uses such spaces not for grandeur but for revelation. He understands the mirror as a weapon. It exposes without speaking, reflects without judgment, forces a man to face what he would rather hide. Words can be denied, accusations can be resisted, but reflection cannot be argued with. A man who sees fear in his own eyes cannot pretend to be fearless. A man who sees ambition staring back from his expression cannot claim humility. The corridor of mirrors is not about glass. It is about silence shaped into reflection. When a ruler walks here, stripped of his entourage, he sees not the crowd that applauds him, but himself multiplied, distorted, unflinching. He comes to realize that his mask may fool others, but it cannot fool the mirror. The weight of this recognition weakens some, strengthens others. Either way, it reveals, and revelation is all the Black Pope needs. Imagine standing there. Your footsteps echo, your face repeats endlessly in the dim light. You want to look away, but every turn brings another reflection. You feel as though unseen eyes watch from behind the glass, measuring the way you hesitate, the way your shoulders rise with tension. You realize you are being read not by men, but by the silence of your own reflection. And at the end of the corridor, when you finally emerge, you are no longer certain who you are. This is the purpose of the corridor. It strips pretense, it dismantles illusions. By the time a man reaches the end, he is softened, vulnerable, open. In that state, he can be guided more easily. His decisions are no longer shaped by pride but by the fresh sting of honesty. And the Black Pope, waiting quietly, uses that moment to plant direction. Not commands, never commands. Only suggestions that feel like salvation. The mirrors do not need to be real. Sometimes the corridor exists only in the mind. Sometimes a man is led through words that reflect his own, questions that turn back upon him, silences that force him to see himself. This, too, is a corridor of mirrors, invisible but just as effective. For whether through glass or through dialogue, the truth is the same. Men cannot resist their own reflection. You, too, have walked such corridors. In moments of silence, when your thoughts return to you like echoes, when you are forced to face who you are without distraction. Those are your mirrors. They strip you, They reveal you. They prepare you for change. The Black Pope simply harnesses this universal truth, perfecting it until it becomes a tool of governance. And so, the corridor of mirrors endures, both in stone and in silence. Those who pass through it leave changed. Some strengthened, some broken, all revealed. Keys open doors. They grant access, they control passage, they divide those who enter from those who wait outside. In the Vatican's shadowed world, there are many keys, metal, ancient, ornate, but the Black Pope holds others, more subtle, more powerful, the keys of silence. With these, he locks not doors but tongues, not chambers but truths. A man who speaks too freely can undo years of work. A word in the wrong ear can scatter carefully laid plans. The Black Pope knows this, and so he guards with silence. Not through threats, not through chains, but through invisible keys that turn in the minds of men. A glance, a gesture, a reminder of what must remain unspoken. These keys lock the mouth before the words are ever formed. Imagine a council where heated debate threatens to spill beyond its walls. Voices rise, hands pound upon the table. Then, in the pause, the Black Pope speaks only once. Some truths cannot survive in sunlight. The room stills. No one repeats what was said. No order was given, no law passed. Yet silence falls like a locked door. That is the power of the keys. These keys are forged from trust and fear alike. Trust, because men who believe they serve something greater hold their tongues willingly. Fear, because they know that silence broken can never be repaired. A man who speaks out finds not only punishment but exile, cut from the chain that sustains him. The threat need not be spoken. It is understood. The keys of silence extend beyond men. They extend to documents, to archives, to history itself. Whole events are locked away, their details sealed so tightly that centuries later they remain mysteries. Historians search for evidence, but the keys still turn, keeping the doors closed. The silence endures because it was crafted not of iron but of discipline, passed from one generation to the next. Think of your own life. Have you not known silence heavier than words? Secrets shared with you that you never repeated, not because you were told not to, but because you felt their weight. That is a key turning within you. The Black Pope crafts such keys with precision, ensuring they lock what must remain hidden while allowing just enough whispers to shape the world outside. For silence is not emptiness. It is structure. It is design. It is the most powerful door, because it does not look like a door at all. And the keys that guard it are not carried in pockets but in minds. This is why the Black Pope rules from shadow. He does not need to hold every key himself. He places them in others, turning them until silence becomes their nature. The world chases documents, speeches, proclamations. It forgets that silence speaks louder. The Black Pope never forgets. He holds the keys of silence, and with them he locks away not only secrets, but certainty itself. In a chamber lined with stone, one candle burns. Its flame is small, fragile, yet it casts shadows that stretch across the room. The others have already gone out. The air is heavy with smoke, the walls darkened by soot. And yet, this single flame persists, carrying light longer than expected, resisting the pull of darkness. This is the last candle, a symbol of endurance, of survival, of the power that remains when all else has faded. The Black Pope understands the value of this final flame. He does not need brilliance everywhere. He does not need armies of light. He needs only one candle burning when others fail, one presence standing when others collapse. For in that last light lies control, guidance, inevitability. Imagine a crisis that shakes the institution. Leaders falter, voices argue, trust crumbles. The room grows darker with each extinguished flame, yet in the silence, one voice remains calm, steady, unshaken. That voice becomes the last candle. All eyes turn toward it. All decisions bend around it, not because it shouts, but because it alone remains steady in the dark. This is how the Black Pope rules. He does not compete with noise. He waits until the noise consumes itself, until exhaustion settles, until hope flickers. Then he speaks, then he shines. And because he is the last candle, His light seems brighter than it truly island men follow, not because they are commanded, but because in darkness, any flame becomes salvation. The last candle is also a warning. It reminds those who serve that endurance is the true measure of power. The loudest flames burn out quickly. The brightest sparks fade. But the small, steady flame endures, guiding long after spectacle has vanished. Those who forget this chase, brilliance and fail. Those who remember this wait in silence until their moment comes. Think of your own life. Have you not seen it? A crisis where many voices shouted, but one quiet presence carried the room. A moment when chaos reigned, but one steady hand held firm. That was the last candle, small, steady, decisive. The Black Pope embodies this principle. He is never the loudest, rarely the most visible. But when all else collapses, when silence becomes heavy, when darkness presses, he remains. His presence becomes inevitable, his authority unquestioned, not because he forced it, but because he endured. The last candle does not burn forever, but it burns long enough to guide through the night. And when dawn comes, the memory of its flame lingers, shaping the day that follows. This is the essence of shadow power, not spectacle, not force, but endurance. To be the last candle when all others fade, to carry the light long enough for the world to need you, to remain steady when everything else breaks. And in that steadiness, in that final flame, lies the quiet mastery of the Black Pope. The Vatican is built on stone older than memory, marble quarried from distant hills, carried across oceans of time, polished by countless hands. To a pilgrim it looks eternal, unchanging. But beneath that stillness are veins, thin lines running through the marble, invisible unless the light catches them just so. They are the flaws and the strengths alike, carrying the memory of how the stone was formed. The Black Pope understands that institutions are the same. What appears whole is always crossed by hidden veins. And it is through those veins that influence flows. Power is not solid. It never has been. It is streaked with loyalties, rivalries, doubts, and ambitions. A council may appear united, but beneath its surface run fractures invisible to the ordinary eye. To push directly against the stone would be useless. It resists, it holds. But to follow the veins, to press gently where they already exist, is to move the immovable. This is how the Black Pope governs, not by hammering but by tracing. He watches carefully for the veins in men. The hesitation in a ruler's voice when a certain name is spoken. The way a cardinal avoids another's gaze. The pause before a vote is cast. These are not weaknesses. They are passages, lines running through the stone of authority. Where others see unity, he sees the subtle streaks that can be followed, widened, shaped. Imagine a council debating in unity, their words aligned, their voices strong. It looks unbreakable. But the Black Pope listens closer. One man speaks too firmly, overcompensating. Another nods too quickly, concealing doubt. A third remains silent too long, his stillness louder than words. These are veins, invisible to the crowd, clear to the one who knows how to see. With patience, he traces them, nudging slightly until the unity fractures, until decisions bend, not broken by force, but reshaped by following what was already there. The veins of marble are not faults to be feared. They are the memory of the stone itself, the record of its creation. In the same way, the fractures within institutions are not accidents, they are truths of history. Old rivalries never fully vanish, old debts never fully dissolve. They remain, buried but alive, waiting for someone to notice. The Black Pope notices. He does not invent divisions, he uncovers them. He lets them guide his hand until what appeared solid bends easily. Think of your own life. Have you not seen people who appeared unshakable, only to reveal small cracks when pressed? A family united until old wounds resurface. A friendship steady until pride is touched. A group strong until silence exposes its doubts. These are veins in your marble. The Black Pope simply magnifies this truth, reading it at the scale of empires. The genius is patience. Marble does not break overnight. Veins reveal themselves slowly, only in certain light, only to certain eyes. But once traced, once understood, they can be followed endlessly. And when the time comes, When pressure is applied, the stone does not shatter. It simply shifts along the line it always carried. Thus, the Vatican stands marble strong, yet veined, and within those veins flows not weakness but possibility. The Black Pope does not strike blindly at the stone. He listens for the hidden lines, traces them with care, and lets the institution reshape itself under his silent hand. History remembers treaties pages signed, wax seals pressed, words proclaimed. But those who rule from shadow know the most powerful concords are never written. They exist in silence, in mutual understanding, in gestures that bind more tightly than ink. These unwritten concords move nations as surely as armies, yet leave no record to bind them. They vanish from history, yet shape it completely. The Black Pope excels at crafting such agreements. He knows that a document can be destroyed, a signature denied, a proclamation revoked. But an unwritten concord lives in memory and in honor, held by men who cannot betray it without betraying themselves. It requires no archive because it is the archive. It requires no law because it is law within the heart. Picture two men sitting at a table. No secretary present, no scribes. They speak, but not in detail. They say only enough to signal intent, to confirm understanding. No notes are taken. No phrases are fixed. When they rise, nothing has been recorded. Yet both leave knowing exactly what has been agreed. Both leave bound, not by parchment, but by silence. The unwritten concord thrives on trust and fear together. Trust, because each man believes the other values silence as much as he does. Fear, because each knows that breaking silence would destroy more than the agreement. It would destroy reputation, standing, existence, itself. This balance makes the bond unbreakable. It holds even when public events shift, even when alliances appear to crumble. The world sees movement, but underneath, the unwritten concord still breathes, still binds. The Black Pope prefers these bonds because they cannot be tracked. They do not appear in archives for historians to discover. They do not appear in letters for spies to steal. They vanish into memory, leaving only the outcomes as evidence. To the outside world, it looks like coincidence, like fortune, like providence. But those who know understand it was agreement, unseen and unrecorded, shaping every step. Even within your own life, you have felt the unwritten concord. A promise made without words, a loyalty carried without declaration, a bond felt without naming it. These are small reflections of the same truth. Humans are bound more deeply by what they never speak than by what they proclaim. Silence is the strongest oath, and so history marches forward, filled with treaties and proclamations, but guided by agreements no one can prove. The Black Pope ensures these concords endure, binding men not with signatures but with silence. And because they are unwritten, they live longer than any document. They live as long as memory, as long as loyalty, as long as fear of silence broken. In the end, the most decisive agreements leave no trace. That is why they last. Power does not survive by accident. It survives because it learns to appear eternal, even when fragile. It survives because it cloaks itself in continuity, disguising change as tradition, disguising weakness as heritage. This is the cloak of continuity, and it is the garment the Black Pope wears most carefully. When leaders rise and fall, when nations fracture, when thrones collapse, the Vatican remains. To the outside world, it looks unchanging, as though centuries pass without disruption. But this is illusion. Behind the veil, everything shifts, alliances, loyalties, priorities. The cloak conceals it, wrapping the institution in a fabric of ritual so seamless that no one notices the changes inside. The Black Pope weaves this cloak with patience. He understands that continuity is perception, not fact. A ritual repeated convinces the world nothing has changed, even if everything has. A phrase spoken century after century convinces the faithful of permanence, even if its meaning has altered entirely. The cloak does not preserve truth. It preserves appearance. And appearance is enough. Imagine a council where decisions overturn decades of policy. The world outside would revolt if it knew. But the cloak covers the shift. The decision is framed as tradition, as natural evolution, as what was always intended. Symbols are invoked, rituals repeated, continuity asserted. By the time the world sees it, The change feels inevitable. No one questions. The cloak has worked. This is why power survives while empires crumble. It does not insist on rigidity. It bends, it shifts, it adapts, but it always cloaks itself as eternal. Men come and go, but the rituals remain. Names change, but the robes are the same. Doctrines evolve, but the prayers sound familiar. Continuity is perception. Perception is survival. You, too, have seen the cloak at work. A family tradition continued, though its meaning is lost. A company rebranded, yet claiming to uphold its founding values. A government changing course while insisting it has not. This is continuity woven as illusion. We accept it because it comforts us, because it tells us the world is stable, even when it is not. The Black Pope uses this comfort as shield and sword. He ensures that every shift hides within ritual, every change cloaks itself in tradition. He knows men fear change but accept continuity, and so he makes every change appear timeless, every decision appear inevitable. That is how shadow power endures, not by refusing to change, but by hiding change beneath the cloak of what seems eternal. The Vatican stands as proof. Centuries have passed, wars fought, empires risen and fallen, yet it remains, draped in continuity, veiled in permanence. Behind that cloak, everything has changed. But the world does not notice, and the Black Pope ensures it never will. The Vatican is built like a city within a city, stone halls and hidden corridors winding through one another until even those who work there every day can lose their way. But the true labyrinth is not carved from marble. It is woven from loyalties. Invisible pathways of trust, obligation, fear, and devotion twist together into a maze more intricate than any map. The Black Pope knows this labyrinth better than any architect. He does not walk its stone halls, he walks the loyalties that bind men to one another. Every figure of power is entangled. A priest is loyal to his mentor, but also indebted to a family. A cardinal is bound to the Pope, yet shaped by the city that raised him. A guard stands by his oath, yet fears for his children. None of these loyalties are pure. Each is a thread in the labyrinth, pulling a man in one direction, then another. To an outsider, it looks chaotic. To the Black Pope, it is a map. He knows which loyalty runs deepest, which is fragile, which will bend under weight. He knows that loyalty is rarely permanent. It shifts with time, with fear, with ambition. He waits for those shifts. He creates them. By doing so, he ensures that every man moves exactly where he needs him. Not because he commands, but because the labyrinth of loyalties guides him there. Imagine a bishop faced with choice: to follow his superior, to honor his mentor, or to protect his family. Each path winds deeper into the labyrinth, each leading to different outcomes. Alone, he is lost. But unseen, the Black Pope adjusts the pathways. A whisper here, a warning there. Suddenly, one path feels heavier, one lighter. The bishop believes he chose freely, yet his steps were guided by the design of another. This labyrinth is not static. It grows. New loyalties appear, old ones fade. The Black Pope tends it like a garden. He prunes bonds that grow too strong. He waters those that serve him. He lets others tangle until they choke themselves. He never forces. He guides. And in guiding, he ensures that no one can leave the labyrinth. Even those who think they walk free are still caught in threads they cannot see. Think of your own life. How many loyalties pull you in different directions? To family, to work, to friends, to your own ambitions. Each choice you make bends under their weight. Imagine someone who knows all of them, who adjusts them subtly until your decisions align with his design. That is how the Black Pope rules, not through force, but through the labyrinth of loyalties that no man can escape. The labyrinth endures because it is human. To live is to be bound. To be bound is to be guided. The Black Pope understands this truth better than any. He does not need armies when he has loyalties. He does not need chains when men chain themselves to one another. And as long as the labyrinth stands, so does his power. Every institution stamps its authority. Some use wax and signet rings. Others use signatures, official letters, declarations marked with seals that prove authenticity. But in the Vatican's shadow, the most powerful seal is never pressed into wax. It is whispered, a word carried quietly, known only to those who matter, yet binding as iron. This is the whispered seal, invisible but undeniable. The whispered seal works because it requires no proof. A letter can be forged, a stamp can be stolen. But a word spoken directly, from one trusted voice to another, cannot be copied. It carries not the weight of parchment, but of presence. The man who hears it knows it came from the source, knows it binds him. And though nothing is written, he carries it out as though it were law. The Black Pope uses this seal often. He does not need documents that could be uncovered centuries later. He does not need decrees that could be traced. He needs only silence, carrying words from his lips into the ears of those who act. Once spoken, the whisper becomes truth. Once received, it cannot be denied. No one questions, because no one outside even knows it exists. Imagine standing in a dim corridor, a figure leaning close. His voice is quiet, almost too quiet to hear. He says only one sentence. You nod. No paper, no witness, no evidence remains. And yet, your entire course has shifted. You will act on that sentence with absolute certainty, not because you must, but because you know who spoke it. That is the whispered seal. Its power is in its fragility. A whisper fades the moment it is spoken, yet its effect endures longer than ink. It does not need to be preserved, because it is preserved in memory. It does not need to be proven, because those who matter already know. And when history looks back, it will find nothing, no parchment, no stamp, no decree. The outcome will exist, but the origin will remain invisible. The Black Pope prefers it this way. He knows that documents enslave men to the past. They bind future generations to promises they never made. But a whisper dies with the listener, leaving only results behind. The seal works in silence, then vanishes. Think of your own life. Have you not acted on words never written? A promise spoken in confidence, a request made softly, a truth shared only once. You carried them out, not because you saw proof, but because you trusted the source. These are small reflections of the same principle. The whispered seal is simply its perfection. And so power moves forward without paper, without record, without trace. Nations shift. Decisions bend. Futures unfold, all sealed not by wax, but by a whisper.